This guy, Flash Thompson, he probably deserved what happened. But just because you can beat him up doesn't give you the right to. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time for my first comic book review. I got this out a little later than I wanted to. And I'm going to be honest, I don't really have time to do this to the normal quality and depth that I would as far as the visuals. I've just ran out of time. I'm still going to do the review. You're still going to hear my opinions, but it's going to be less effects. Let's just put it that way. Sometimes you just don't have the time to do it quite to the degree that you want to. But basically, this is just going to be me gushing over Nick Spencer and Mark Bagley's Sinister War #1. This is the culmination of a lot of moving parts that have been going on, not only in Amazing Spider-Man, but in Amazing Mary Jane, if you read that as well. And I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. If you've been on the Nick Spencer Spider-Man train, this is exactly what you've been waiting for. We're finally getting all these plot threads are coming together, and you can see that there is a very, very good chance that one more day will be no more once Sinister War is over, or at least Amazing Spider-Man 74. But it doesn't appear that it won't be without consequences. At least that's what it's hinting at in this comic book here. This is a highly recommend, bordering on a highest recommend. Is it? Man, should it be a highest recommend? You know what? I'm going to give this my highest recommendation. Everybody should be reading this. If you love comic books with action, great characters that you know and love, digging into the past, and with a little bit of soap opera drama and some revelations, this is the comic book for you. This is why we read comics, for fun stuff like this. And I had a lot of fun with the issue, and I imagine a lot of people will. I saw, I was looking on Comic Book Roundup, and it's got kind of mediocre scores, at least from the reviewers, and I don't see it. Like, what were they wanting from this comic book? It essentially delivered every single thing that Nick Spencer has been promising since his Amazing Spider-Man run started, at least in my opinion. So I don't get where the hate's from. If you did not like this issue as much as I did, let me know in the comments section. Where am I wrong? Where did I miss the flaws in this comic book? Because I just don't see very many. Now let's get into the details of why. We got to start out with the art from Mark Bagley, one of the great Spider-Man artists of all time. I really like the art in this comic book. It isn't the best Mark Bagley Spider-Man art I've ever seen, but it's not. I mean, it's right up there. This is really good action-based, visual storytelling. At its finest, Mark Bagley delivering the goods with a very action-packed, fun issue to look at. Everything is kinetic. Everything is in action. And, and you're getting the classic Spidey images that you would expect from Mark Bagley. There are a couple of times where the composition maybe of some faces felt a little bit off, like maybe he didn't have enough or as much time as normal. But typically Mark Bagley is really fast. So I think maybe he just, there are a couple of faces being rendered that weren't quite up to snuff as far as I'm concerned, as far as Mark Bagley's standard, which is really, really high. This is like 4.5 star art. It's really, really good. Far above average. I've seen people dogging on the art specifically is one of the reasons that they didn't like Sinister War. Like I said, again, I don't see it. There are a few critiques here and there, but for the most part, Mark Bagley delivers good. If you like Mark Bagley Spider-Man, you're going to like this comic book art specifically. Now let's get into the story, because this is where the meat of the criticism is going to come from. And I think he does a good job, he being Nick Spencer. There are a lot of things happening within Amazing Spider-Man, like for the last 2-3 years. And like I mentioned, Amazing Mary Jane. If you did not read that, and I didn't, but I'm up enough to know that she decided to go to Hollywood to pursue her dreams, to make a movie. She met a director. It turns out that director was Mephisto, and Peter has not known that. And they do a good job, the creative team, specifically Nick Spencer, of catching you up on all the things that have been happening. Catches you up on Kindred, not everything, but it lets you know enough of what's been going on in Peter Parker's mind with the relationship with Mary Jane, which Nick Spencer has worked very hard at bringing back to the forefront of Amazing Spider-Man. So is it perfect? Is this a jumping on point for Spider-Man? Not really. You, at least generally speaking, need to know what's been happening within Amazing Spider-Man to actually get what's happening and what exactly this is addressing. Although, if you came in just off the street, picked up Sinister War #1, I think you would understand that one of the big issues that Nick Spencer is addressing in this is One More Day. It's not that subtle. And then you do get a couple pages like this that do catch you up on some of the other backstories as far as what's going on. So is it a perfect jumping on point? No. If you know a little bit, he does catch you up enough, and Nick Spencer does put in a little bit of effort to catch you up to what's going on, which is more than I can say for a vast majority of comic book writers in the industry today. For the most part, either you know or you don't. They don't even try to get the new readers acclimated to what's going on in the story. He at least makes a attempt. It's not perfect, and probably what's keeping this from being like a 5-star comic. Next up, we've got the Peter and Mary Jane relationship. Nick Spencer has put a lot of emphasis on this from day one since he took over Amazing Spider-Man. You could see that he wanted to bring the Mary Jane Peter Parker relationship back, and he's certainly been hinting in leading up to Last Remains, the first story arc where we really got Kindred, that he was going to be addressing One More Day. Well, there's some other things going on. They're back together, and Peter has almost popped the question. You know what I'm saying? He was about to ask Mary Jane to marry him. In his mind, it's probably for the first time. We know that they've already been married. That was taken away from him due to a deal with the devil, which probably never should have happened. But he is unaware that this man, this director that is with his better half, is actually Mysterio in disguise. And that is going to come up. It certainly is revealed to Peter during some of the conflicts here. We do not know how he's going to react to that, but he had his hand in his pocket talking about he was going to ask a big question, hinting that he was about to ask Mary Jane to marry him. We do know that on Amazing Spider-Man 74, and I hate if you think this is a spoiler, it is a spoiler review, but on Amazing Spider-Man 74, Nick Spencer's last issue, we've got Spider-Man, we've got Mary Jane, she's holding a bouquet. My prediction is they get married. We also know that right after that, Ben Reilly takes over as Spider-Man because I think he dies, or at least he's almost dead. At least that's what appears to have happened once they get together. So we might not get quite the happy ending, just based on some of what we've seen as far as previews of the next story arc and that last cover that we all wanted. This comic is absolutely at its best when it is the Sinister War itself. If you're unaware, Doc Ock, under the guidance of Kindred, maybe not the guidance, the influence of Kindred, has returned to his old ways, and he has gotten the Sinister Six back together. In last issue, he separated Kurt Connors from the Lizard, so he's got the Lizard, he's got Kraven, he's got Sandman. We've also got the Savage Six under the leadership of Vulture. We've got Scorpion there. Who else? We got Rhino, the Tarantula. We got all these classic characters. It's a lot of fun, and they are going at it. It is a battle royale going on in the Marvel Comics universe, specifically between Spidey villains with Spider-Man and Mary Jane caught in the middle. We also know that, according to Kindred, Mysterio is going to play a big part in this. This is when the big reveal happens, and Peter realizes that Mephisto was actually the director, and he thinks, oh, you were doing something to Mary Jane. And then she admits, I knew that was Mysterio. I should have told you that, but I wanted to tell you, but I never got around to it. We'll see how Peter reacts to that. It's certainly not. It's not something that's going to build up the trust between the characters. Let's put it that way. And I must say, when they are doing this action and Peter's caught in the middle of it, and he's going, what the hell is going on? How did all this stuff happen? It's really funny. He's got some really good quips, and he is absolutely in character. Nick Spencer writes Peter Parker very well in character as he's in the middle of this enormous, villain gang fight at Mary Jane's premiere of her movie that's coming up. That's going to be one of her big breaks. So, if you came for this And I imagine most people did. It is Sinister War. If you came for the Sinister Six versus the Savage Six, and there's 3 other villain teams that are kind of joining into the fray by the end of this, you are going to get your money's worth. And Mark Bagley kicks so much ass with the art in this when this actually happens. It's a lot of fun. If you came for fun, this here is the comic for you. But you're also going to get some drama and stuff like that too, because it is a Peter Parker romance story going on in the background. Another big storyline that's going on it's hinted at and addressed less, but it's certainly addressed and it's important, is the Kindred storyline. If you are not aware, there are 3 Harry Osborns in the 616 right now. We've got Kindred, who is Harry Osborn with some very newfound powers. He's extremely powerful. We've seen him kill Peter Parker and bring him back to life. He's controlling Doc Ock using one of his centipedes that went into his head. He was also being held, not in stasis, but he was being held in a box by his father, Norman, who was looking to save him after Kindred had released the Sin Eater on his father and other characters. And he knocked out his father and escaped. So that's how Kindred is back in the world. And you can see he's messing with Mephisto there. So we've got Kindred, that's one version of Harry. We've got another Harry that is being held prisoner with another character that has seen the body of Harry Osborn. So that's the 3rd Harry Osborn. And so she's being held prisoner with the actual Harry Osborn by Kindred, because apparently he does not want that to get out. The theory is, this is my theory, and I believe it's Doc's as well. We talked about it last weekend when we were getting hyped up for Sinister War, that Kindred himself is Harry Osborn that was like in hell because he was dead before One More Day. And this is, One More Day brought things back. Obviously it brought a fake version of Harry. Well, we think it's a fake version of Harry. It brought, Aunt May and stuff back. So we believe, or I believe, and Doc believes this too, that this is the version of Harry that was kind of in hell before One More Day that agreement was made. The Harry Osborn that's in jail is like the version of him that came back after One More Day and when all those things were undone. And then the dead body is the body of this Harry Osborn. That proves, in fact, he was dead before. And where the hell did this new Harry Osborn come from? It's very exciting stuff. And he's talking to Peter here. He's like, this is going to hurt, pal. Apparently he's going to put him through a ringer. And that's crazy because we've already seen him murder Peter Parker several times and bring him back from the dead. So what does Kindred have in store? It feels like he is going to let Peter Parker know that he made a deal with the devil to bring Aunt May back. He lost his marriage to Mary Jane, but he also unearthed some very bad things. The other storyline that's going through this certainly is related to Kindred, or at least it appears, and it's this conversation between Doctor Strange and Mephisto. This opens the comic book, and it ends the comic book. The very first page is this conversation, and then the last page is these 2 characters talking once again. One More Day was Peter Parker making a deal with Mephisto, making a deal with the devil. Basically, to save Aunt May, he had to lose his marriage to Mary Jane. We know that Doctor Strange has been aware of something that has happened. He does not have the details yet, as you can tell by this conversation, where he says something has been taken from him, being Peter Parker, by you, devil. And Mephisto says, you know the nature of my particular game. I can't take anything. It can only be given freely. Talking about the dissolution of the marriage, the bringing back of Aunt May because of the One More Day story arc. And by the end, these 2 are talking, and Mephisto's kind of playing a game with Doctor Strange, essentially saying, we'll play roulette on, red, I win, black, you win kind of thing. It is certainly hinted at in the story that Peter and MJ, like maybe marrying again, might nullify the deal in One More Day with Mephisto, right? So based on the cover that I'm seeing from 74 and some of the fallout that we're seeing, I think what we're going to see is Strange is unsuccessful in undoing One More Day in the Mephisto deal that was made. But Peter Parker and Mary Jane eloping going out and getting married on their own nullifies the deal, and there's a price to pay. Like anytime you make a deal with the devil, it's always a bad deal because it's never what it seems. He's always gonna take something more from you than you anticipate. In this case, I believe, because we know Ben Reilly is going to be Spider-Man. And we've seen pictures of Peter Parker in the hospital, and we've seen, Mary Jane looking over his body, that I believe that the price to pay might be Peter Parker himself, at least his soul. Just a theory, but this is certainly running through there. These are all references to One More Day. It's referenced many times throughout this. I think this is very exciting. I think people are ready for One More Day to be expunged for the record. I don't think that's going to happen, but they are ready for Peter and MJ to get back together. I just happen to think that this is probably going to end up being bad news and will end up being the death of Peter, unfortunately. So that is my review of Sinister War #1. This is the highest recommendation. It's a 4.5-star comic. There's just a couple of issues. It's not the perfect jumping on point. There's just a couple of issues with Mark Bagley's art, but for the most part, this thing is exactly what they promised. It's a really great, fun story when the Sinister Six and the Savage Six are fighting, and you got Peter Parker stuck in the middle. It's got the drama, right? What's going to happen with Peter and MJ? Peter knows that MJ was working with Mysterio now when she was filming that movie. He's got the ring in his pocket. Is he going to ask her to marry him? A lot of stuff happening. You got Kindred kind of torturing Norman Osborn and his fellow captive because they know the truth, that there's more than one Harry Osborn out there. So a lot of things are coming together as we head to the end of Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run. I'm definitely on board for the full iteration of Sinister War for every issue, getting up into Amazing Spider-Man 74. Don't know that I'll be able to review every issue, but we'll see. I would like to, because this is a lot of fun. It's exactly what the doctor ordered. This is why we read comics, right? For crazy, fun soap opera, dramas with characters that we love, to the backdrop of amazing action and all out. In this case, a battle royale of villains going on at the premiere of MJ's movie. This is too much fun. Love this comic, and I hope you do too. I don't know why the critics don't like this as much as I do. I just think this is damn near perfect. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.